Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on EQUINOXE Television. Tonight, the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms has condemned escalating violence in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. In this newscast, we shall be telling you how the Chemuta Divine Banda-led commission has so far denounced the killing of security forces in the southwest and northwest regions of the country in the past few days. Also ahead, we talk about an incident in the Douala Free subdivision where a child has been missing for several days now. Parents are in search of the 3-year-old child who disappeared reportedly from a private institution that the child is attending. In this newscast, we tell you how the parent, precisely the mother of the baby, beseeched the company or the institution that was yesterday in the city of Douala. Plus, we take you to Tuba, that is a locality in Mezam of the northwest region of the country where there are no roads and potable water. Stay with us. We shall be right back. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much once again for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on EQUINOXE Television. Let's begin right away in Kutaba on a rather sad note, where in the west region of the country where a boy died after falling into a 50-meter deep well. That was an incident which occurred a few days ago. The incident left relatives and local inhabitants in shock, as Catherine Kone tells us in the following report.
The remains of 6-year-old Mamadou Sani, which has just been removed from this 50 meters borehole. The poor and grieved father of the deceased is giving preliminary information to the investigative security officer. The incident which occurred leaves neighboring residents in shock and consternation. According to eyewitness account, they heard a loud cry of the young Mamadou Sani, whom she says found himself in the borehole after trying to escape from a motorbike. He is the 7th victim of a borehole-related death in few months in the locality. To the mayor, due to the recurrent death of kids, which is as a result of poor well construction, deposition will be made to secure boreholes in the locality. To the locals, the lack of water in Kutaba is a major cause of death in the locality. We usually need to drill deep the boreholes in order to get water. Unfortunately, this has claimed the lives of many children who fall inside. However, the mayor and his collaborators have concluded a crisis meeting with inhabitants of Penji Kwata, where a commission has been created to handle these problems.
An accident on the National Road number 5, that is in Penja, Mongo division of the littoral region of Cameroon, left 2 persons severely injured. They are currently receiving treatment in hospital. The lorry transporting iron was heading to Douala when it witnessed a technical fall and fell off. It paralyzed circulation for several hours, as Manjikan Gabriel tells us in the following report.
Vehicles plying the National Road number 5 are forced to take a secondary route to continue with their journey. The main road itself has been blocked by a lorry that fell off after having a technical fault. Witness accounts say the lorry transporting irons was heading for Douala when it suddenly witnessed a breakdown at Njombe, precisely where the placard of 23 deaths is implanted. The lorry that blocked the entire route forced other road users to go through a secondary route. The lorry driver by name Ngwanye Breeze and his motorboy, we were told, were severely injured and are currently receiving medical attention at a local health center in the Njombe Penja subdivision of Mongo Division.
The Tuba subdivision, as we announced in the headlines in Mezam, division is without roads and potable water. The problems are likely to last longer as a result of limited budget at the disposal of municipal executives for the year 2018. The mayor for the said municipality complained that revenue collection has so far dropped drastically this year as a result of the Anglophone crisis. Details in the following report. To get to Tuba subdivision, Mezam, in the northwest region of Cameroon, vehicles have to brave potholes and broken roads. Locals have time and again taken a collective action to fill the holes which impede circulation, but their effort can barely last for months. The Tuba Council is aware of this challenge and has pledged to make it a top priority project to be realized in 2018.
2018, the major principal project that we think we cannot play with is to maintain the roads that we bulldoze all these 4 years. Because any road that is done 4 years or 3 years old should be a bad road now. So we'll go over all the roads in our municipality, maintain them. Instead of doing that, we still have means. We continue the creation of new roads.
The population also needs potable water and the construction of stalls in the market. Critics have asked to know how the council would be able to attain these goals when its budget for the year 2018 has been slashed by 11%. The mayor of the Tuba Council, Tanjong Martin, disclosed that business persons have been reluctant to pay taxes since the Anglophone crisis escalated. He justified the situation to the crippling economy and said that the council's budget could not attain the over 1 billion francs CFA allocated for the year 2017.
Political situation had made it impossible for us to generate the revenue that we used to generate at this portion of the year. That's why you have found the decrease in our budget for 2018. Well, it has derailed us but not stopped us from working.
The Tuba municipality has 954,494,245 francs CFA as budget for the coming year. The municipal executives who voted and adopted the budget in a session have, however, vowed to see into it that council activities do not remain stagnant despite the current socio-political crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. And that is the prevailing situation. It should be noted that the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms has condemned the killings of elements of the defense forces in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, calling on the government to investigate and bring the culprits to book. It is the outcome of a meeting that took place Monday, chaired by the Commission's president. The Chemota Divine Banda-led Commission said that it has also issued countless releases after investigating cases of violence and human rights abuses between December 2016 to November 2017 in the two English-speaking regions of the country and at the General Secretariat of State in charge of Defense and National Gendarmerie said where some detainees of the Anglophone crisis are currently being held. The National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms condemned all forms of violence and called on the government to engage a constructive dialogue. The release was made public. That was today in the nation's capital. On to other story to show solidarity to sons and daughters of fallen soldiers in different war fronts, particularly in the far north region of the country, those engaged in the battle against Boko Haram, those in the east region in Betua fighting the Seleka rebels in the Central African Republic, and soldiers who fell in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. Some students and pupils in the entire littoral region of the country converge on Bonanjo to show solidarity to the children that have lost their parents that are engaged in war in the far north region, in the northwest and the southwest region, and also in the east region of the country. That was a ceremony that took place here in the country's economic capital, Douala, chaired by a representative at the governor's office in the littoral region of Cameroon. Let's now have an excerpt of the Secretary General of at the governor's office in the littoral region of Cameroon, Mr. Thierry Kiri, was speaking to Equinox Television.
I feel very satisfied I feel surprised, but positively surprised. Surprised of the act that those children have just done concerning their brothers who have lost their fathers, who were engaged in operations aiming at protecting the country and the population as a whole.
Something else, the disappearance of a 3-year-old child in a private primary school in Dokpasi in the Douala Free subdivision has left parents of the child and school authorities divided. The child went missing, that was last week on Wednesday, and efforts to know her whereabouts have been fruitless so far. It was a tense atmosphere at the school that was yesterday after the child's mother showed up and disrupted classes. Innocent as I was there, he tells us more in this report.
Itaye Ambamba Abigail, 3-year-old, and a nursery 1 kid of a corps privé bilingue, le Vainqueur de Boko, in the Passé Douala 3 subdivision, went missing in the school on the 29th of November 2017. Her mother has been in distress as she asked and searched for her daughter to no avail.
Je m'arrête donc chercher l'enfant dans sa salle de classe, je ne trouve pas l'enfant.
She claims the head teacher showed bad faith when she complained.
Il se comporte comme si je le dérangeais.
This allegation was refuted by the head teacher, Kwajib Sylvain, who says has not been addressed as he visited the 2nd Central Police Station, media houses, and equally went printing images of the disappeared child, pasting them in the quarters, plus organizing a big search comprising teachers, parents and relatives of the infant.
Ma préoccupation, c'est cet enfant, Abigail. C'est mon enfant, c'est mon élève.
A day after the child disappeared, a fourth star, Kwandem Philip, stepped in pretending to be a taxi driver in keeping of the child. He demanded the sum of 10,000 francs to be deposited in his mobile money account before he sent someone at Wrong Point Dakar with Abigail.
On va au rond-point Dakar. Nous avons attendu des heures et des heures.
A granted request which only saw the fourth star demanding for more money, which was given him, but with fruitless results.
Quelqu'un envoie le reste des 4,000 là, mais n'envoie plus un mobile money.
The school authorities have decided not to surrender the search until the 3-year-old is found. Meantime, classes this Monday were disrupted by the child's mother, who has been anxious for a couple of days now.
Yesterday we told you how some workers of an intra-urban transport company in the nation's capital Yaoundé went on strike demanding better working conditions from management of the said company. Activities resumed this Tuesday. They went on strike decrying poor working conditions and failure to pay their several months of salaries after a crisis meeting that brought together the angry workers, officials of the company, and the divisional officer for the Douala 6 subdivision. They decided, or the Yaoundé 6 municipality rather, they decided to suspend the strike action on grounds that their salaries would be paid this Friday. We now take you to news out of the country. Zimbabwe's new government is now mapping out strategies to revamp the country's broken economy. This is one of the frontline challenges awaiting the new cabinet sworn in by the president, Emerson Mnangagwa. That was yesterday. It's been so far criticized for mainly ZANU-PF members, for having mainly ZANU-PF members and army composition. Babla Jonathan tells us more in the following report.
22-member cabinet of entirely ruling ZANU-PF party members and senior army officials sworn in by Zimbabwe's new president, Emerson Mnangagwa. For the first time in Zimbabwe's 37-year history, the oath was not led by Robert Mugabe. The new president who led the oath-taking immediately called for unity as his government attends to a broken economy. Legal experts say the president might have made his first mistake in office. A law professor at the University of Zimbabwe, Love More Maduro, highlights the fact that despite a promise to reach out to the opposition, President Mnangagwa only appointed loyalists to pay back those who stood up for him after he was fired as vice president by Robert Mugabe. Two top army officials and members of the cabinet, Air Marshal Perance Shiri, who was handed the sensitive land portfolio, defended his appointment in remarks to reporters. He asked the question, who says military people should never be politicians, indicating that he is a Zimbabwean, so he has every right to participate in government. Another military figure is Foreign Affairs Minister Subusiso Moyo, who is remembered by Zimbabweans as the khaki-clad general who went on state television in the early hours of November 15, 2017 to announce the military takeover. Mnangagwa dropped his initial Minister of Education 24 hours after appointment and reshuffled 2 other positions to meet a constitutional requirement that all but 5 ministers should be members of parliament. This has left the information portfolio vacant after Chris Musonga was appointed special advisor to the president. The new cabinet will finish former President Robert Mugabe's mandate within a period of 6 months. President Mnangagwa has not declared whether he will be candidate at the upcoming presidential election next year.
And they announced dismissal of team coach Hugo Bruce, and which is still to be confronted by the Sports and Physical Education Minister in the nation's capital. Is not the only scandal that is rocking the football sector in the country. The presidents of amateur clubs of the country say that they would sue Tombi Aroko Sidiki for the violation of texts and the rules and regulations governing the Cameroonian Football Federation. The decision was taken during the General Assembly which took place in Yaoundé yesterday. Sabanji Kangebril has the details.
After his passage at the hand of the Cameroon Football Federation, Tombi Aroko Sidiki still has sleepless nights. During the General Assembly meeting of the Association of Amateur Football Clubs of Cameroon, the members of the association have decided to drop a complaint against the ex-president of FECAFOOT for wrongfully taking up a title alongside violating the text and rules and regulations of the Cameroon Football Federation. The conference hall of the sports complex was filled to capacity with over 300 club presidents participating at the General Assembly meeting, making sports analysts to believe the club presidents are already warming up for the upcoming elections in the football house. While waiting for the elections procedures to be announced by the Normalization Committee in charge of FECAFOOT, the General Assembly that took place in Yaoundé saw the renewal of the Bureau of the Association, which now has 18 members. Henri-Claude Mbala Ongolo was voted back as president. Akwe Epe Domingo maintained as the treasurer of the association. However, there were new faces in the likes of Celine Eko Mendomo as the advisor, Ofenseke at the communication unit, and others like Francois Ndedimbange as one of the vice presidents of the association.
And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Up next is Talking Points. Stay with us. Tonight, we continue to talk about the socio-political tension rocking the 2 English-speaking regions of the country. Our guest tonight is a journalist, Mr. Augustine Wendong. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, meaningful to come share, of course, ideas to conscientize the public about burning issues that are affecting national life.
The pleasure is ours as well. In few days from now, deliberations, legislative business would end at the level of Yaoundé. We have seen the pressure from the SDF MPs at the level of the hemicycle since the session began, boycotting, protesting at the level of the National Assembly. Up to now, the President of the National Assembly is still to react. Fellow MPs are still to consider the various revendications of SDF MPs. Now, the government is taking more tougher sanctions as far as security measures in the 2 English-speaking regions of the country. At the same time, MPs are calling for dialogue at the National Assembly. What is your reaction as far as these happenings are concerned?
It's a paradox. I want to say that whether the MPs or the Speaker of the House of Assembly is reacting or not, or what goes down to history is that for once, Cameroonians are proud that we have a National Assembly, because a National Assembly that was so docile, a National Assembly where bills were clapped in and they passed like a letter through the post box, of course saw a dawn of a new era where 15 MPs of the opposition, the SDF, put into action what can be called typical parliamentary business in a modern democratic society, because they are representatives of the people. If they believe that they were actually voted from constituencies to represent the aspiration of the Cameroonian people, then a situation like the very disturbing situation of the Anglophone crisis, which is becoming chaotic, could not go unchecked by the House of Representatives of the people. So for once, the SDF had rekindled the glimmer of hope in Cameroonians that they can be proud of a House of Assembly.
The House of Assembly, but we saw the indifference of other MPs, because the National Assembly equally has members of parliament from other opposition parties. We equally saw other people's representatives of the CPDM.
MEFO, the truth is not democratic. The truth is not democratic. Even if it's spoken only by one person, the truth remains the truth, even if it's spoken by one person. So for the fact that the parliamentary group of the Social Democratic Forum, I'm a journalist, I've not come here to front for a political party. You know me, and those who are politicians, they know me, that I don't carry any party emblems, okay? But I want to say that I'm a Cameroonian who love this country, and if we pretend to say we are a democratic country with democratic culture, there should be debate about issues that affect national life within the hemicycle.
Like the current Anglophone crisis. The current Anglophone crisis is escalating.
I want to come. You know, the majority which comes from the ruling party, the CPDM, they are struggling to conserve power. And the Social Democratic Front being conscious that their role is to be watchdog in order to get to power, should just be doing what they are doing. And if there are other MPs of the opposition dormant or docile, they are not politicians.
Okay,
they should leave the assembly.
Mr. Augustine Wendong, the situation is becoming more and more preoccupying. There are reports of many Anglophone Cameroonians fleeing to neighboring Nigeria. The United Nations has been talking about it. Those escaping the crisis to neighboring Nigeria is swelling, the number of those that are escaping. What could be causing them to leave the northwest and the southwest regions when the government officials are indicating that security forces are there to protect the population?
Yes.
How can we explain that?
I want to tell you in a straight naked truth, is that how wouldn't you not expect Anglophone Cameroonians to escape to neighboring countries when a senior divisional officer would tell them just after the declaration of the head of state that they should relocate?
But he has debunked. He said the communique is fake. That's what
it is the governor.
Said.
It is the governor that debunked the communique.
He too issued another communique denying, rejecting the communique.
But they should bring out who must have written and signed the communique, because the communique was written and signed by the senior divisional officer for Manu, before Governor Okala Bilai Bernard came on air to say no, government is going there to restore the authority of the state.
Then why are people escaping to Nigeria? Government is there to restore order.
Because it was like, it's a captulant, it's a warlike situation. The senior divisional officers communicate gave the impression that the forces, the defense forces, were not coming to fight the enemies. They were coming instead to fight everybody, which was not the case. I think this is the point where the President of the Republic should take corresponding action.
The silence of the government too is very preoccupying on this situation, this problem of refugee crisis.
Sorry?
The government's silence,
yes,
on the refugee reported cases of refugee.
I want to say that
crisis
it is a bad situation. It is a bad situation. In as much as I condemned the killing of soldiers, because I'm still asking, who is killing soldiers? Who are those killing soldiers, of which I condemn in total? I'm a Christian by birth, all right? By birth. And life is given only by God. And God alone have the prerogative to take away life. No human person have the right to take away life. But I support the government to restore the authority of the state, but then for the interest of the common Cameroonian. Yes, if Cameroonians are now languishing in misery, in bushes, in dense forests, and in foreign land, eating roots of trees, the government should do something. The government did something by repatriating, clandestine immigrants from Libya. They should do something, because if the international community is already crying with the influx of refugees in neighboring Nigeria, is therefore a cause for concern. So I want to say that
the government has to react.
Possibly
during the end of year speech on the 31st.
When I saw the President of the Republic on the 30th making this declaration, I saw the Commander-in-Chief taking a decision. But I am still waiting for the President of the Republic to take a more softer decision to bring Cameroonians to table, so that we can dialogue.
We are hoping
he is the father of the nation.
That is the hope of everyone, especially as he is preparing to address Cameroonians on the 31st of
I think that
December
the 31st should be too far. The President of the Republic can still call the inclusive dialogue today, tomorrow, because before the 31st of December, you wouldn't know what. The Cameroonians might have died in bushes. Let him call for a dialogue on this Anglophone crisis, so that Cameroonians can all feel at home. I am happy that the President of the Republic wants to fight the enemy, whoever they are.
Of course. Thank you so much, Mr. Augustine Wendon, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
The pleasure is always
mine. So, televiewers, we thank you as well for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.